This here right now is episode 4 of Master and Student Psychotherapy. And to my left is not Laura Jane this week, it's just Laura Drain, who is a psychotherapist. Hello.
Hello, Jim.
Right, last time actually it was episode 2, not 3, so it wasn't last time. But look, we were talking about the fact that self-management, self-governing, self-thought, self-reflection on you is one of the first things you have to get through to be a convincing therapist. Is that right? Yeah,
to be a therapist that does good work.
Right.
An effective therapist.
Is it? Why? Okay, first of all, easiest question in the world. Why is that? Why do I have to have sorted myself out before I sort everyone else out?
So I think I said this last time that, you know, if you're with a client and the stuff that they're talking about is really triggering. So by triggering, I mean it upsets you. It reminds you of some of your own stuff.
Yeah.
You need to be able to be present for them, even if you've got kind of fireworks going off inside of you.
Okay.
You need those fireworks to be kind of manageable enough that you don't lose your focus on the client, that it's about them, it's not about you. Also,
is there the ability to, there are two things you can't do. You have to empathise. You don't, what's the word? It's just completely gone out of my head. So empathy is you can look at them and you can understand what they're saying, but you're not reacting to it. It's not personal to you. So you don't sympathise.
No, so empathy is putting yourself in somebody else's shoes. So you can imagine what that might be like for them. And if you can't empathise, you tell them you can't empathise. So you might say something like, I can't imagine what that must be like for you.
Okay. Is that a trigger for them to explain?
I would hope so, yeah.
So we're going to talk about open questioning as well in another one. But okay, so looking at the concept of self-reflection, how does that work? Where does it? What's the process? Is there a process?
So it's about awareness. It's about becoming aware of yourself, your thought processes, what triggers what feelings in you. You know, old belief systems that you might have, current belief systems. Are they correct? Are they incorrect? Are they based on something that isn't actually real? So it's about knowing why you do the things you do, and does it serve you? Do those, you know, so if you start talking about, I don't know, something that I find really triggering, how am I going to react and why? And is it appropriate?
Right.
So it's about learning about yourself. Why certain things bother you, why certain things don't bother you. Why do certain things make me angry? Why do other things not make me angry? Why is that?
Yeah.
You know, so it's understanding your internal processes so that you can be aware of them in the room with a client.
Yeah.
So if you're starting to feel angry in a session with a client, why?
Yeah, what's caused that?
What is it they're saying? Or is it their anger? Are you picking up on their anger because they can't feel it? So I'm getting it. I'm starting to feel angry on their behalf.
Okay, so basically, in a broad stretch, self-reflection is about making sure that you are present for them and not sympathising, not understanding, what they're doing and becoming a friend rather than a therapist.
Yeah, or a big one for me that I can struggle with sometimes is over-identification. So especially when I'm working with addicts. So I might be with an addict and they'll be describing stuff, when I do this, I feel this, and I identify so much because it's like they're telling my story. I start to assume that they think like I think and they feel what I feel. So the danger is that I will just assume that, oh yeah, I understand what you mean because I understand how it affects me, but it might not affect them.
So that blocks out the reality of their story by you going, yeah, no, I know all that.
Exactly.
Right, I can identify with that simply because when we were talking on the 50 and Coping show, you and I suddenly realised that you completely understood my addiction, you had the same game kind of thing, and then I just assumed then that you knew what was going on for me. I did then realise afterwards that that's bullshit. You were doing your thing, but it just ran, not because we were in the same space for some of it, but just simply because what you were describing was always yes, always more. What do you mean you're going to bed and finishing? How do you even do that? You know, that kind of stuff. Do you think being an addict helps you as a therapist?
It can do, and sometimes it can hinder me.
Yeah, it gets in your way?
Yeah, sometimes, because I over-identify with people, and sometimes I assume. So I might see a client and they come to me with substance problems, but they're not an addict.
Right.
But my natural assumption is, oh, you know, you're an addict, you need to go 12-step, da-da-da-da-da-da. So I have to really watch that part of myself that wants to just box them off and say, this is what you are, this is what you need, go away and do it.
So avoiding a blanket diagnosis as well is really important.
Yeah.
Because there are some people who do take drugs who don't necessarily, you know, they don't have an addictive nature.
Well, some people suffer with the illness of addiction, and some people are just heavy users.
Yeah.
There is a massive difference.
Well, the massive difference is the heavy users, it's choice, and the choice is still on them, right? Because the substance hasn't made the decision for them.
Yeah.
See, I know a few things.
You're learning.
I'm learning. I self-reflect. Right, basically, for clarity, I have just finished the level 2 counselling skills course, which I passed. Right, thank you very much. When I have the certificate, I will show you. I was going to bring the certificate for the child psychology level 2 that I have passed and got one. Thank you very much. But the certificate wasn't a thing. I did get a thrill. Can I just say that?
Good. I'm glad you did.
And I did it on the interwebs as well. And I got my boy to open the envelope because I kind of knew what it was, and then he couldn't read the word child psychology, and then he go back and said, "I think you passed," and it was great. But so having that, those 2 courses have actually shown me what I don't know more than what I do. So that's great. But self-reflection was a big deal in the last assessment. So basically you'd learnt the little rules, right? I'm not that sounded awful patronising, but you know what I mean. But the last one was about internal self-reflection, looking inside you. What are your negative points? What's going to be a block to you being a therapist? And I was honest with it. So that went on for a while. But the good thing is that self-reflection in a textbook, it tells you that you can hone your own skills because you will know when you're not failing, but it's not quite hitting the mark. So when you relate too much, right? Also, you can see what triggers you still. So obviously, you've gone through the sessions of your therapy to get to a place where you are okay with yourself. We'll come to that. I've just had a thing.
Okay.
So you're in a better position, but presumably you're not going to be able to cover everything. So there are so many different people who come to you for help that one day something may trigger you, but you didn't even know it was a trigger.
Yeah, and that's where supervision comes in. So if you're a BACP registered psychotherapist, which I am, you have to have regular supervision. It's part of their code of ethics.
Yeah.
So I have supervision every other week, and if ever I'm in a situation with a client and I get triggered, and that can be a myriad of different things, you know, the way that it affects me, I go to her. So I could give you an example. Do you want me to give you an example?
Yeah, of course.
So I had a client, and he was quite a big guy, and he had substance abuse problems, and I got a funny feeling when I spoke to him on the phone. I was slightly worried about seeing him because I work from home on my own, there's nobody else at home, and I suddenly got a little bit nervous, which doesn't happen very often.
Right.
He turned up, I opened the door, he was a big guy, and I was feeling edgy. Anyway, he sat down, we started talking. Turns out from the work that he's gay, and all of a sudden my fear just went, and I took it to my supervisor, and she said, wow, so you must have been frightened he was going to rape you.
Yeah.
Somewhere right back here in the depths of your being, there is that fear, and I guess that is what it is. But I needed to just work through that process with her to work out why I'd suddenly gone from feeling really quite edgy to feeling completely relaxed and very warm towards this person.
Right, so the threat had gone.
Totally.
So once the threat and the fear had left, you could function.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't want to say to anyone out there, don't listen to your intuition, because you kind of have to in life. But in a therapy situation, that's not appropriate, is it?
Well,
but you can't just turn off your feelings. And also, if this massive great geezer turns up and he looks aggressive, you're going to think the worst, and whoever you are, until you start talking. It's lucky he told you early on, you know, that you know what he was, and then the threat disappeared.
Yeah, but that's just a really good example of, you know, being triggered. I've done a lot of work on myself. I've been in, you know, I had 7 years worth of therapy, but there are still some times where there's stuff in me that gets triggered that I need to work through with my supervisor. And it was a very quick process, and I kind of knew what she was going to say, but I needed her to say it.
Sometimes you need an outside influence. It can't all be internal, because then what happens is you start ruminating. So situations that are past that you cannot change, cyclical in your head, downward spiral. Next thing you know, you're in trouble. Okay, so let's look at supervision quickly. Supervision is basically, as it says, somebody who is there that can release the pressure for you. Also, it has to be said that nobody knows everything.
No.
And if you have something that's outside your skill set, or you think it is, you talk to your supervisor and they say, well, actually, it's this, and this, right?
Yeah.
So they give you a sure foundation. That's cool. Because I was wondering, I mean, I knew about supervision. My brother, you know, does the drugs and alcohol substance abuse thing up north, and he has supervision because he has to deal with some heavy people who just aren't well. And he says that, and Sean, I mean, Jesus, he makes me look like a small child, and he's tattooed from head to foot. And if you look at him, you go, ooh. But he's lovely. He's the loveliest. He's a lot lovelier than I am. Do you know what I mean? He's very kind, very sure of himself. But, you know, him going in there, he talks and he says the only thing you have to do is be honest. Because if you're not serving yourself. Because this is the problem I have. You know, I've done no work on myself. I've not even looked, because quite frankly, who wants to open that Pandora's box of poop? I'm going to have to, aren't I? I'm going to have to if I want to do this.
You will.
Yeah.
Sooner the better.
Yeah, I know, Laura Jane. I know. Can I just call you Laura Jane?
No, it's not my name.
Okay, cool. We're looking at self-reflection, right? So what happens when you self-reflect to the point that it becomes negative? I haven't dealt with this well. And it's honest, you know, I haven't dealt with this well. I could have steered them better. And if this client doesn't come back or you know, whatever, how self-reflection can also be negative, can it?
Well, I mean, it could be if you were left to your own devices with it, but that's where a therapist comes in, you know, a good therapist. So if you are constantly going to your therapist with a lot of negativity and I wish I'd done this different and I wish I'd done that different, what a therapist will do is they'll help you work through that process until you get to the point of acceptance.
Right.
So, and it's a grieving process. So it will be, I wish I'd done this differently. So you've got to grieve the fact that you didn't do it differently.
Okay.
So, for example, you know, people come to me with, you know, I wish my relationship with my mum had been different, and she's dead now and there's nothing I can do about it. So we might go through a process of grieving not only the mum that she had, but the mum that she'd wished she'd had.
Okay.
And that's a really powerful piece of work to do with somebody.
Everyone paints the dead as saints, right?
There can be that, yeah, you can fall into that trap of like, I couldn't possibly slag my mum off because she's dead, you know, so I have to say good things about her. But a good therapist will help you to get into the reality about that.
Yeah. I mean, my mother's been dead for a long time, and I don't have any bad feeling towards her. The only thing I am noticing is that I remember less and less about her, which doesn't, you know, necessarily negatively detract from my life. I think I put that to bed as well, you know what I mean? It was a long time ago. No, well, no, I haven't. So anyway, okay.
Moving swiftly on.
So when you, right, so the benefits of self-reflection are that you can hone your skills, right? You can also channel and know the help that you need to ask for. You can also, you know, look at the reality of triggering in your life and what might happen if you don't address these things. So it's really important to know yourself.
Yeah.
So therefore the therapy and the work and then the supervision and everything else, you can get a really good grip on who you are, what you can handle. Do you have a set line of guidelines which clients you take?
No, I don't have like a set of guidelines in my head, but if I get a really, so if I got a really, really negative counter-transference with a client. So I feel incredibly negative towards them, and that can be for loads of different reasons.
Yeah.
I might refer them on to somebody else because it is good to know one's limitations, you know, and I don't need to bang my head against a brick wall because I'm not doing myself any favours and I'm not doing the client any favours.
Also, if you have negativity from the start of a new client, right, there's got to be a reason for that.
Yeah.
Right? Also, you won't be able to help them to the best of their abilities.
No, and sometimes it's something that needs to be worked through, and sometimes I'm kind of up for that challenge. I want to work through the negative transference with the client, and sometimes I don't, and that would be the time that I would refer them on to somebody else. It doesn't happen very often, but it does happen, especially if my resources are low. So if I'm feeling a bit burnt out and I just am not up for the challenge of the constant negativity, and I don't mean that the client is depressed, but I mean they're quite attacking towards me, like you're a shit therapist, why am I here, this isn't doing any good, and yet they come back every week. Sometimes I think I can't keep putting myself through that.
You can't be a punch bag.
No.
For long. I mean, if you can work through it, so you stop.
If you can work through it, it can be transformative, but you've got to be pretty bloody robust to be able to cope with that week in, week out. It's not easy.
No. You see, without having done any work on myself, if someone's negative all the way through to me, I know where that's going.
But you see, I did it to my therapist. So I had a male therapist when I was training, and I went every single week and I told him how much I hated him and how much I didn't want to be there and how much I was only coming because I was training and da-da-da-da. And that guy, he soaked it up and he soaked it up and he soaked it up, and he never, ever retaliated, ever.
What, he never set fire to you even once?
Not even once.
Blimey, I would have done.
I know. I mean, what a guy.
Do you know what though? When you have your professional hat on, you are a completely different human being, like on the mask side of it. But it must affect you.
Oh, it does.
Also, I am. Here's my worry, okay? Because it's all about me. I'm sitting in front of somebody, and yes, I can help them and I can relate. But the trouble is once I finish that session with them, their whole emotional not negativity, just their rush of emotions that are how they feel and what they do. I've got a feeling I'll carry that.
You
with
do,
me for a
you
while.
will, and that's why I go on holiday every 3 months, because it is a very, very tiring job to do, because even if you've got the best client in the world, you are still like sucking up their stuff and carrying it around with you. And supervision helps to a certain extent, self-care helps, you know, not working too many hours helps, but I find every 3 months or so, I'm at a point where I just go, it's enough now, enough, I'm full up now, I need to just go and get rid of it all. So yeah, it's not an easy job.
No, I mean, I'm not looking for easy street either. Do you know what? I don't know what I'm looking for. I mean, you know, if I'm honest, this is all way brand new, but also as I'm doing 50 and coping and we're doing this show, then what's happening is doors are opening. So, you know, the coffee drop-ins, coffee and coping, you know, I spoke to you about this earlier, you know, I'm now working with Walking with the Wounded charity, which I was going for a job for but didn't get, and now, you know, I'm being, you know, I've been given a way in, you know, to work off my own fruition, but I don't know what I want to be.
It doesn't matter, Jim. It doesn't matter, because it more will be revealed. You know, all you need to do, and we spoke about this in a previous show, is you just need to keep doing the next thing that is put in front of you. So for you, that will be the level 3 diploma. Do that, see what comes into your life. That's how my career has progressed, is that I just keep doing the next right thing, and then God, my God, whatever, the universe, whatever you want to call it, just goes, what about trying this? And it will be put in my path, and I can either say yes or I can say no.
I struggle with that.
That's because you don't have a faith, Jim.
No, I don't.
You don't believe in the power of the universe, and you know, I feel bad for you that you don't have that, because it helps me so much when I disappear up my own bum about what am I going to do and this, I remember I don't need to worry about that, because the universe has a plan for me. I just need to take the next step. I wish I could give that to you as a gift.
That's kind for you to feel that way, but it's right. It's difficult for me having. I would love to have a religion, honestly.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about
No.
religion.
Right. So let's rephrase that. I'd like to have a belief system.
Good. Okay.
Right. And I do pray. I mean, I've talked about this before. So let's look at belief systems and the help they do in the next episode.
Okay. Let's do that.
Because apparently the man with the stopwatch has said.
Enough already. Shut up.
Well done, Laura.
Cheers.
It's always good to talk to you.
And you.
See you next time.
Bye.